The first hearing in the appeal of Saskatchewan's Parents' Bill of Rights begins in a Regina courthouse today. Scott Moe's government used the notwithstanding clause to push through the bill last October. It requires parental consent for students under the age of 16 to be able to change their pronouns or their names that they want to go by at school. The move led to protests and legal challenges claiming it violates Canadian charter rights. Joining us this morning from Regina on what to expect from this week's hearings is Bennett Jensen, Director of Legal at Egale Canada and Legal Counsel for UR Pride. Welcome to your morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Well, as a reminder to our viewers, the notwithstanding clause allows governments to pass an act and prevent courts from overriding it through certain challenges that are based on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It will last for 5 years. What exactly will you and your colleagues be arguing in court this week?
I think viewers should expect to hear about very technical legal arguments. So before I get into them, I'll try to put the purpose of the notwithstanding clause even more simply, which is that its purpose is to allow governments to violate charter rights. And what we'll be arguing in court is what the rule is about the role of the courts once a government has chosen to violate the rights of its population through the passage of a law. So the governments of Saskatchewan, Alberta, and New Brunswick would take the position that once they've done this, once they've used the notwithstanding clause, the courts have no role in evaluating the compliance of the law in any detailed sense with the charter. And we take the position that the courts still have a very important role.
There have been a lot of developments and legal challenges to this policy. How confident are you, Bennett, that this case will be continued and successful?
Well, I'm hopeful. I think our legal arguments are very strong. But I think that no matter what happens in the courts, it's really important that the Canadian public understand what's being discussed here. As I said, this is a case where resulting from the government intentionally violating the charter rights of an incredibly vulnerable part of the population. And I think it's also important that we keep in mind that there's been a lot of misinformation here. All of us agree that all parents want what's best for their children. We're talking about a particularly vulnerable portion of gender diverse kids who unfortunately won't have the support of their parents at home if they come out, and ensuring their safety. We're talking about issues where a court has already found that that portion of the population will suffer irreparable harm as a result of the policy being pursued by the Saskatchewan government. So the stakes are incredibly high. When we're talking about harm, we're talking about things like increased risk of suicidality, increased substance use, homelessness, and I mean, our question is really why the governments are targeting such a vulnerable population in running counter to, such strong evidence against their policies.
We did reach out to the government of Saskatchewan. Their response to us was this: the Parents' Bill of Rights provides parents with the assurance they will be involved in important decisions involving their children, and that important information involving their children will not be withheld from them. What have you heard about the effects of this policy on the youth who are affected?
Well, I think that statement makes clear just how much misinformation is being used by governments to support their policies. There was no secret conspiracy happening in schools. Teachers were doing what they've always done, which is support their students as they show up to live full and happy lives, and parents have always been involved in that. Because of statements like what was just read, there's been a real negative chilling effect on queer and trans young people. Bullying has gone up. Kids are scared to come out to their parents, to their teachers, and the closeted lives are deeply painful lives. And like I said, result in higher rates of suicidality, higher rates of homelessness, et cetera. So the rhetoric that we're hearing at the political level about these young people is having real effects, and their lives are being stigmatized. They're hearing from their political leaders that there's something wrong with being who they are, and it's hard to overstate the cost of that.
There are similar policies in New Brunswick and in Alberta. What kind of precedent do you think this case could set?
Well, I hope that other governments learn from what we're hearing from families, which is that these policies are deeply harmful and don't have any basis in reality, and that they learn that lesson. A hearing from, or excuse me, as I referenced, a court has already found that these policies cause irreparable harm. So I would really hope that other governments would take that seriously.
One last question for you, Bennett. The beginning portion of what has got to this moment here was that the Premier had said he had received some calls from parents concerned, that their children wanted to use certain names or pronouns at school and it wasn't being told to them. But what have you heard from parents in this sector of children who are concerned about what has happened, the change that has happened?
Yeah, so the parents I speak to are worried about premiers creating a culture at school that teaches young people that there's something wrong with being who they are, that teaches young people that there's something wrong with getting to know their friends, with building trusted relationships with teachers, with supporting diversity in the classroom, no matter what kind of diversity that is. And, parents really aren't feeling heard in the province of Saskatchewan and in other provinces where their leaders are pursuing policies like this.
An important point to make. Director of Legal at Egale Canada, Bennett Jensen, thanks for coming on at the start of an important week for you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.